Hello and welcome to drawing up a one-point perspective. Today this is the floor plan that we're going to draw the perspective from, or based on I should say. And what we're going to do is we have the north symbol over here, and that means that this would be the north wall on this side. On the floor plan, you can see that there's a foot-by-foot grid that will help us with our furniture in just a little bit. But the idea is we would draw this wall, and you can see that the grid was set around this area because what we're going to do is we're going to be standing 20 feet back from this north wall. And then 14 feet over from here. So if we take our measure from the back wall, we'll go ahead and set that so that we're at 20. And we would fall right about here. And if we come over here to the 14 foot, we're standing right about here and thinking about that view looking forward. To give us a little bit of extra room, we're going to set the MP at 22 feet. Other details is that the VP will be 5 feet off of the finished floor. And then to build this grid, we have a taller ceiling, and everything you should be able to decide about your structural details should come from your title block. So if you notice something's missing there, you want to add that in as you get towards your final product. But we have a 20-foot center. If you can see, there's the dashed lines here, and there's the dashed lines here. Some of them overlap a little bit with those dashed there. But that's the point where it starts at 16, slopes to 20, goes flat, goes back to the dashed line point where it slopes down again to 16. So to do that, the best place is to start with a 20-foot grid so you get the overall frame, and then we'll walk through how to slope it down to the 16 foot. So that's what we're going to be working from. So I have to get this off the page a little bit here so I can take you into how I'm going to set this up. I have grid paper underneath, and then I have a piece of like a roll of sketch paper, so it's relatively translucent for me to see through. And as I mentioned, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make my grid 20 foot high. And obviously I can count my boxes, but I'm going to make sure I measure so my eyes don't play tricks on me. So here it is. We're going to make a 20-foot grid in using the quadrant scale on that back wall plane. And then based on what we have, even though my wall's going to block what I'm going to do, so that's why the grid isn't drawn in this bedroom, I'm still going to draw it at the full 29 feet wide because I'm looking this way. This one's a great one because we have a stained glass window here to feature. Okay, so we look over this way, and that means that we're going to have 29 feet wide. And I'm just going to kind of imagine how that would be to the center of the paper. And in this case, we have to draw the ceiling as well. So I think I'm actually going to move that up a little bit more just to make sure that that is centered, because best we do it now rather than later. So, okay, so we'll set it up a little bit higher. So there's our 20-foot ceiling height, and then we're going to go ahead across here. And what I did when I did the grid paper, I set it up so that the line lines up with the bar before to get started. That way I know I don't have to keep measuring it multiple times. I can just do the bar. And again, when I'm laying out this 29 feet, I'm just kind of trying to think of, okay, where is the most central part to the paper? So here we have our 29, and I'll come in, and for this, I'm going to look for an ultrafine Sharpie just for a moment here so that I can draw that so it stands out a little bit stronger than when my walls start getting put into place. So I'm going to go ahead, and looks like I'll stop it right about there. So I'm going to take my triangle. Using a nice big triangle is going to be very helpful. so you can really carry your lines, because this will be a big surface with that tall of a ceiling. For this, I'm going to go ahead, pull my bar up. I should have probably done that with the other one too. Just double check, make sure. Yeah, a little bit off, so there we go. Make sure I use the bar, not that triangle for the horizontal line. Okay, now that is more accurate. And I'm going to continue to reference back to this, but again, I'm just leaving this off to the side so that I can show you what I'm working on here. Let me go ahead and just zoom out for a moment. And what we have is the VP is 14 feet over from the west wall. Remember, we were going to stand 14 feet over. So I'm going to go ahead and measure that at 14 feet over. So I can see it's my line there. And then we indicated here that the VP would be at 5 feet. So I'm going to go ahead and mark that at the 5 foot mark up off of the ground. All right, so now here is my VP. And then I establish my horizon line. I'm not going to worry so much about the horizon line over here to measure, right? You could go off to either side. My typical MO is usually off to the right. I have had sometimes people set it off to the left. And sometimes it does make the grid a little bit bigger to the closer wall. But for the most part, we're relatively centered on this. So I'm going to build on what I typically do is off to the side for the MP. Now it said that we're going to stand back 20 feet and we're going to add 2 feet. So let's see if we can make that work in the paper, if at all possible here. Oh yeah, we can do that. So I'm coming off from the edge, and maybe I'll come in it back again. So I'm at 22 feet and I'm going to come over to my 1 foot mark over here, or 0, to make it the 22. So here's our MP, and we had that 20 feet over from the nearest wall. I'm going to come in and do my floor line across the bottom. We need that to set up the MP. And at this point, I think I'm going to leave it off to this side altogether just so it doesn't get pretty jumbled when we start doing the rest of the framework. We have our baseline now. Okay, so we have the MP and we have what we call as the baseline. And this one here, let me come out a little bit. Actually, I'm just going to write it off to the side here. This is our horizon line. You'll see that in a minute when I zoom out just a bit, but I want you to see what I'm doing. Let me come in. Can I come in a little closer? Yeah, let's do that. All right. Now we're going to set our 1 foot mark increments along the baseline. And yes, we do have the grid paper, but just in case eyes play tricks, we're just going to double check. And then it does run off to the edge. I did have a larger piece of grid paper too. I considered including in the video, but in the end, I felt that it would just distract more of the side with too many crosshairs and 90-degree lines when rather than the angular ones we're going to use. So I chose to just stick with that. Okay. We'll go ahead and I marked those out. Those look good. So I'm just going to make sure that my 1 foot increments are down on my baseline, because then I'll take that from the MP to establish how I start setting up the grid. Should have really just had these touch the line, but I'm just going to make sure that we've got this set here. Okay, so now those are accurate to the baseline, and I'll come in. I'm going to go ahead and get my bar out of the way, and I will set this in place, and I'll just use I use the Sharpie again to exaggerate the angles. So let's go ahead and we're going to do the baseline here from the VP out to this corner. And then we're going to do the same thing down here. Okay, got this. Okay, so there's the VP. And then I'll bring my bar down along here. And then we'll come up here and then work this angle. And again, I'm not going to worry about the fact that it slopes yet. We'll go ahead and figure that out in just a little bit. Okay, let's go ahead and just start with the baseline. And I'm going to bring my lines over from the MP, coming through the first spot here, hit my base, my line there, through the center here, my third foot mark to the MP here, and so forth. So I'm just taking it from the MP into those center foot marks. Just making sure I go through the center of both. Obviously, you could speed this part up if you wanted or do it along with me. But I just want to take the time here to make sure there's accuracy and just show you that sometimes it just takes a few minutes. But once you get that foundation set, then you know that everything else should be pretty accurate. Okay, great. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and use my bar to carry the lines across, going through every one of the little lines on the floor. So I'm going to go ahead and just zoom out a little bit here so you can see. That's what I'm going to be doing from the first foot out. And some of these back lines are going to be pretty small. You could experiment with a 1/2 inch grid on the back wall. That usually requires a pretty big paper surface. But there's nothing to say that you couldn't create your grid, and then if you wanted to enlarge it on the copier, you could do something like that. Because remember, this isn't to a scale. I mean, you lose the ability to measure your back wall plane, but you always have your grid set up. So if you could create the back wall grid in there, rather than just that grid paper underneath it. You could enlarge it if you needed to, so it was easier for you to plot things out. Just hitting my paper underneath a little bit there. So I'm going to drag it from over here to get a little better momentum. Yeah, that seems to be working better. Probably because I'm right-handed, I'm just going to drag it over there. Okay, make sure it's right in the middle. Okay, and again here. Okay, right through the middle here. Okay, so now we have all of our floor grid. Let me come in a little tighter so you can see that. So now we have that floor grid, and I'm going to go off to the side. Just going to move the paper here. And I'm going to see if I've got a colored ultrafine Sharpie. Yeah, let's see something to see if I can. If not, maybe I'll do it the more solid one. I guess for today I'll just do that ultra fine again, because some of my other ones are a little bit light. I don't know if it'll show so well. Okay, well, let's go ahead and start the triangle, running up from here, and I'm going to make sure it's part of that first piece, second foot, third, and so on. And again, if you want to, if you're kind of just doing an overview, you could certainly fast forward through this. To give you a heads up, I'm going to do all the vertical lines for this one first. And here's why. I'm going to check my right. I'm going to create my left. I'm going to connect the lines on top for the ceiling and make sure they match up before I start doing my horizontal distances up off the floor. So that'll be coming up here. Okay. So now when I'm done, I've got this whole section here. I'm going to go over and do the same here. Then I'm going to carry my bar up and make sure that those match up. And it's all about making sure that that first line intersects right at the baseline. So you know you're drawing it up from the right location. Now, yep, I'm in pen, so hopefully it's going to be fine, or I'll have to start all over again. But it certainly is helpful when it's much bolder. Now, it doesn't have to be perfect, but we don't want it tremendously off. It's kind of a combination of art and science here. I also want to see, sometimes it may be a bit tricky with how it may get, it's got to come out a little bit before you really start to notice it gradually get bigger. So for a while you can see these were pretty close, but it's because we're standing so far back. I'm just going to make sure that's right on the line. I didn't take it quite over to the line. There we go. And again, wherever it intersects, making sure that we've got that there with no problem. Come again. Here as well. Come across here. Come across here. Now you can see this is not an inking triangle, so it's dragging a little bit of ink underneath it. I'm going to try not to angle it so much. Okay. And there we are. Okay. Now those last foot doesn't exactly connect with that. I'm not too worried about it because I'm probably not going to show anything up that close. So here's the next step. Here's what I was talking about with that. I'll just use a pencil for this one. What I want to do is I want to take that first foot and make sure that it matches up. Woo, lucky me. All right. So we're going to come across and we're going to make sure that that second foot, those match up as well. Now these look like these are a little bit off, but I'm going to find a compromise here and find that middle with it to try to make it as close as possible. Okay, yeah, that one's okay. And we're going to make sure that these are hitting okay as well. Yeah, they're not perfect, but they're pretty close, so that'll work out pretty well. But you can see it's a good idea for me to go ahead and do that now. rather than weight. There we go, that's looking better. Okay, before I get everything else set, and if I really did have to start again, I haven't created all of my horizontal lines. Now with some of these, again, I'm just going to kind of find a middle. Make sure those are accurate. Some of the lines are protruding a little bit above the lines, so I'm just having them intersect in, and then these look pretty good. It wouldn't be uncommon for those earlier lines to be maybe slightly off because you're so far back, it's quite small. So you just do the best you can to work through and find that lines of the ceiling. All right. Okay, great. Okay, so we are okay with this. And then the next step would be to go ahead and add in all of the lines. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I usually kind of like this marker better with that pencil. It's such a sharp point, and this is a thin paper. It was going through it a little bit. So one thing you could do to set your base so that it's a very durable sheet, you could, if you have like some extra vellum left from some of your earlier drawings, you could use the 18 by 24 vellum sheet, and that would give you a pretty sturdy foundation. Go ahead and move this guy up. And we've got that here, here. And I'm just going those 1 foot increments all the way around. And then we know we had the horizon line here at this point. And again, you could use the technique for walls and ceiling and the floor to all be different colors. This is that ultra fine Sharpie that tends to not be too thick, but stands out enough, especially when you lay over that next sheet of the paper. Okay, come through here. Straight out. tend to like to draw on the top. It isn't always possible, and kind of hiding what you're seeing a little bit when I'm covering over the VP. But again, VP to the 1 foot increments. And we're going to do the same thing on the ceiling. Then we have our horizontal line. I'm going to make sure I recreate that. Come around. All right, now I'm going to do the ceiling. And with this one, I'm trying to think if I'll do it in pencil again, I think, to connect here. And I'm going to go to that 1 foot. Now the ceiling's gonna matter because it gives the opportunity, well, not only to show the slope, and you need that to plot it out, but the other detail is gonna be like light fixtures, putting those details in place. If any of the finished materials were beams, that would give you the ability to plot that out as well. And this is all part of that process for the designer thinking about the finish schedule, the electrical schedule, to see what kind of things that you'll need to use this grid to plot out. Pencil lead. Let me see. Go back to that one. I didn't run out of pencil. Okay. Okay, so now we've got all of those in place. And here's what I want to show you about the ceiling with how we would draw that out. So I'm just going to grab another sheet here and tear that off. Bear with me for a minute here. Okay. So now I'm going to show you how we would plot this out. I'm going to try to do it here so we don't have to recreate our grid. Show you what that looks like. All right. What it is when we were in the room, we know that we start at 16 on the sides, we go to that slope, and then we're 20. So to note, when we measure, just gonna find my scale here. Okay, so when we measure over on 1/4 inch, we can see that the dashed lines come in 9 feet over. All right, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, so 9 feet over is where it slopes down to 16. So what happens is I then count up 16 feet off the ground. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So I've got that 4 feet left. So here's what happens. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. And I'm not going to worry about the room not being there or not being there. The main idea is, again, how far over for the dashed line. We can always plot it out on the floor for where it is or where it isn't. But this demo right now is to help you see about creating your sloped ceiling. So now, again, I'm measuring over to the 9-foot mark. And remember, we came down 4 feet or 16 feet up. And it's always good to double check that, just to check your numbers. So if I have 16 feet here, I should have 4 left. Yes, I do. So here's how we do the slope ceiling. It's pretty cool. All right. So what we do is, this is the slope ceiling on the back. I'm just going to try to do it in this marker so you can see it. And then what happens is you're off any kind of things with your bar, because you just have to establish what the slope is from here. Okay, so it does this and this. And then what happens, and I'm not going to worry, I just want to show you what the whole backdrop would look like. I'm not going to worry about my walls at the moment. I want to show you what that back wall would look like here. And then what you would do is, from the VP, this is no different from the corner, you'll bring that out. Now we go to that first spot there and bring it out. And then we go to the spot that we plotted at the 20 foot, the 20 foot, and this mark here. And then where you go from there is you look at all of these 1 foot increments along here. And I'm not going to redraw these at the moment, but what you would do is connect it to your 1 foot marks here. So that's why we did that entire grid. So you would take your 1 foot mark to your 1 foot mark, your 2 foot mark to your 2 foot mark, your 3 foot mark to your 3 foot mark. And you keep connecting it all the way out. You would do the same thing. I'm just going to do for the first few feet here. I'm going to mark it for myself little dots, because there's a lot of lines that I'm seeing here. So make sure I don't get confused with which ones I need to connect. So I'm coming through with my lines there. I'm coming through with the line here. I'm coming through with the line here. I'm just connecting those first few feet. You can bring it all the way out, but for the time of the video, I'm just gonna do the first few feet so you get the idea. And then you simply come in and you're gonna connect your foot marks together. Okay, and you would pull it up from there. And then to identify what you have for your 1 foot increments, you're just simply going to connect them to where the 2 intersect with the back wall. Okay, and then you would do your VP from there out. And then this one out. This out from here and continue that same idea. Just like all these lines were from that VP, so that's how you would put it in place. Let's see if you can take a look at that. Right. So that's how you do to create the angled ceiling, and you can come in with the rest to refresh that. Or keep both down and then just pay attention to what you reconstructed with the sheet in the other. So, all right, that is how to create a slope ceiling in this example of the floor plan. Thanks for watching.